President Obama bragged in October 2011 he had succeeded in fulfilling a crucial campaign promise. He said, quote, "As a candidate for president, I pledge to bring the war in Iraq to a responsible end. Iraqis have taken full responsibility for their country's security." He then added, "After nearly 9 years, America's war in Iraq will be over." Of course, as soon as America pulled out, ISIS and Iran pulled in. Today, the military requested that 500 more troops be sent to Iraq to prepare a new invasion of Mosul. According to the Wall Street Journal, the new U.S. forces would increase the number of American personnel officially deployed in Iraq from 4,400 to about 4,900. We also have 1,500 additional U.S. forces that the Pentagon doesn't acknowledge as part of the Iraq force. We actually have 6,400 people in Iraq. In July 2011, it's worth remembering, the LA Times reported the White House was considering keeping 10,000 troops in Iraq after the end of the war in order to prevent terrorist uprisings. The White House obviously ended up rejecting that plan, and ISIS used the vacuum in order to overrun Iraq's borders. If Obama had implemented that plan, as the Wall Street Journal's Brett Stevens pointed out today, the U.S. would likely have about 6,400 troops in Iraq today and no ISIS. And by the way, those ISIS troops, it was reported, are now using mustard gas, that's weapons of mass destruction, against American troops. But that's been Obama's presidency in a nutshell. You promise something undoable, you try to do it, you fail, and then you watch as circumstances force you to embrace the plan you rejected, while you still pay for the consequences of your failure. That's what happened in Syria, where Obama once wanted Assad gone, then backed down from his red line, then had to embrace a let Assad kill them position, all the while accepting tens of thousands of Syrian refugees. It happened in Iran, too, where Obama wanted to make Iran part of the global community, and people said this is going to fail. And then he signed a deal to legitimize them. And now he's going to escape office just in time to avoid watching the Iranians thwart the deal utterly under his watch. It happened domestically also. Obama promised universal health care, and then he delivered the Obamacare failure, and now he has to beg states to expand Medicaid to fulfill his promises. Obama's policies have been a giant, massive, undeniable failure. The policies have cost lives. They've destroyed full countries. Now he's trying to put the genie back in the bottle. And it's worth pointing out that if he hadn't been such a stubborn leftist fool, the world would have been a far more peaceful place in the first place. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. So first of all, just want to say hello to our sponsors at ClubW.com. Club W is a wonderful service. This is, if you don't know anything about wine, if you're somebody who is not a wine aficionado, I'm not a wine aficionado, then you go to Club W, and if you go to ClubW.com/Ben, they help you go through kind of what foods you like, what foods do the people you're going to their house, you need to bring a bottle of wine, what foods do they like, so that you bring the right bottle of wine. And their wine is much cheaper than it would be if you tried to get a custom bottle of wine, or if you tried to really search out a fancy bottle of wine. And if you're somebody like me, you're totally ignorant about how wine works, but you want to get a good bottle of wine that fits your taste palette, you go to ClubW.com/Ben. And if you go there and you use that /Ben, then you get $20 off your first order now, which is great. I mean, that's most of the cost of a bottle in many of these cases. I know you hate paying for shipping, so Club W pays for your shipping on orders of 4 bottles or more as well. So it's ClubW.com/Ben. And it really is, it's a great service. I mean, I know the wine is good. I can't drink the wine, but I know all of my staffers did. I mean, this is what they do with their spare time, is they take advantage of my advertisers by drinking up all the wine and then getting drunk, and then that's how the show looks. I mean, that's why the show looks the way the show looks. But I can attest to the power of the wine, and they say that the wine is really good. So ClubW.com/Ben, that's the place to go if you don't know what kind of wine to get, and if you want a good, cost-effective bottle of wine that's going to match whatever your dinner is going to be that night. Okay, so tons to get to today here on the Ben Shapiro Show. We have the mailbag today, so if you're a subscriber, woohoo for you. You get to be part of the mailbag. We'll be doing that later in the show. But we begin today with new information surrounding Keith Scott. This is the guy who was shot in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that has prompted out-and-out riots in Charlotte, North Carolina. So what his family said is that he was sitting, we discussed this yesterday, he was sitting in his car supposedly waiting for his kid to get back from school via the school bus, and he was sitting and he was reading a book, right? He was reading a book because he was just, that's the kind of guy he was. He sat there and he read Aristotle in his spare time in the middle of downtown Charlotte. And they said he didn't have a gun. They said that there was no gun present. None, no gun. The police said, guys, there was a gun. There's a little bit of a gun, and not only was there a gun, we told him to put down the gun. He did not put down the gun, and so we shot him, and he was raising the gun, and he was an imminent threat. Okay, here is a picture, and the police have confirmed that this is indeed a picture of his body, and you will notice an object that is lying near his body. Does that look like a book to you? Now, I understand that President Obama thinks that it's easier to get a gun than a book, But in this particular picture, it was easier to have a gun than a book, apparently. There is a gun next to his body because he did, in fact, have a gun. And the family, they lied about it. They said that there was no gun present, that he was completely unarmed, that he was just an innocent guy shot by the evil white police force. The officer who shot him was black. Facts don't matter at all in these situations anymore. And when the tape comes out, they still won't matter because you can have tape that completely exonerates officers and people still come up with a twisted way of interpreting the tape so that it's the officer's fault that somebody gets shot. So naturally, because facts have no relation to the case, because people like Hillary Clinton pretend that this fellow, this Keith Scott guy, was completely innocent, didn't do anything wrong, there are riots. And the riots are horrible. I mean, we have tons of video from the riots. So here's video from what the riots looked like. Near the cop lines, people are going down. Apparently, a couple of people were shot last night. One person was actually in critical condition at the hospital. And then there was another tape that showed a white guy just getting the absolute crap beat out of him. He was unlucky enough to be in a parking lot, and a bunch of black kids, I don't know if they're kids, I mean, black teenagers, young adults, start beating the living crap out of him just because he's white and he's there. Do we have the video there? Okay, this is stuff from A Clockwork Orange, honestly. I mean, this is somebody's innocent walking in a parking lot. A bunch of people confront him. They rip off his pants. They're yelling at him. They're beating him. They're kicking him. Somebody runs up and kicks him in the head. He's begging for help. No help is forthcoming. But don't worry, these are just honest protesters. They're just protesters. That's the way this goes. It's all right. We're used to protests like this. I mean, these are the kind of protests I'm sure Martin Luther King would have known. These were necessary in order to forward the social good. And then there was a fellow working for CNN who was blindsided by a protester and knocked to the ground in the middle of his broadcast. Do we have the tape of that one? Oh no, this is the one of the Charlotte protester.
I serve a purpose. My father serves a purpose. My brother serves a purpose. I'm here.
Does anyone know or did anyone see who did the shooting? Or are you concerned that we're not sure exactly what happened?
You want it on video so you can put it on the news, right?
No, we're on live,
That's
actually.
what you're trying to find out. If we got a video so you can elaborate out, make a fucking fabricated story, right? You want a video that you can base a fabricated story off of, right? Right?
Okay, so you have this girl screaming that we don't want any video. Video would show that we might be wrong. So no, we don't have video because video would show that we might actually not be telling the truth about what happened in this particular shooting. There was also a CNN protester screaming to CNN about Trump. So that was lovely. We have tape of that one also, I believe. Yep, that's it.
We were standing outside of police headquarters with about 100, 150 people that were having conversations with police. They were tense, but they were still conversations. Things quickly devolved. Excuse me, sir. Things quickly devolved and then got out of control when they came here. And Don, I'm just going to
say the guy pop his head in and he starts cursing. This sort of behavior is just wonderful. It's just terrific. We've seen people looting Walmart. We saw people loot the Charlotte Hornets arena. Quick note to the NBA. Okay, the NBA wanted to pull games out of Charlotte, North Carolina because of the fear for transgender people. The Charlotte Hornets arena just got looted. It just got looted by some of these folks. They're not pulling games out there. I mean, if fear is the real issue here, wouldn't you think that they might think about postponing games in Charlotte or not playing games in Charlotte if any minute there could be a conflagration and people could go absolutely nuts? There was, by the way, a CNN reporter who was knocked to the ground in the middle of all of this. And this is just rioting. I mean, it's just rioting. And some of the people who are protesters are there not even knowing what happened in the shooting. They don't want to know what happened in the shooting because the truth would actually go against their case. The truth would undermine everything that they're trying to argue. And that's their entire problem. Their entire problem is that the truth has no relevance here whatsoever. And therefore, it's totally okay for them to go out and riot on the basis of nothing. So here is the fallout. The fallout is the North Carolina governor, Pat McCrory, he's now declared a state of emergency. He says he hasn't heard from President Obama, who's just absent all the time. President Obama is not even he's not even present. He's not even a person in all of this. Here's the North Carolina governor talking about it.
I've just declared a state of emergency. We're going to be bringing in National Guard right now to help the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, and we're also going to be bringing in state highway troopers to supplement their needs, primarily to protect buildings so the police can arrest those necessary, these people who are causing damage to buildings and also trying to harm people in the great city of Charlotte.
Have you heard from the President of the United States yet?
I have not, no.
Yeah.
Shocker, shocker. President Obama goes completely absent. But don't worry, his surrogates are out there saying what he thinks. Here's Hillary Clinton saying, you know, the shooting of this guy, again, this shooting so far, based on what we've heard, is fully justified. So we'll see if that's not true. But the protesters don't know any more than you do. They don't know any more than I do. They're not even waiting to find out whether it's justified or not. They're rioting. Hillary Clinton doesn't wait either. She jumps directly to the conclusion something terrible has happened here. This guy gets shot after apparently pulling a gun on police officers, and Hillary just chalks it right up to white racism.
There is still much we don't know about what happened in both incidents,
so you
but we do know that we have 2 more names to add to a list of African Americans killed by police officers in these encounters. It's unbearable, and it needs to become intolerable.
Okay, it's unbearable and it needs to become intolerable. Okay, it's not intolerable for a cop to shoot someone threatening them with a gun. I don't understand. What does she want the cop to do? Just sit there and wait to be shot? Does she want cops to actually just put their lives at risk and never respond to violence? This is insanity. It is unbearable when people get shot unjustifiably. It's quite bearable when they get shot justifiably. And in this particular instance, we don't know all the facts, but we do know that the guy had a gun. The family said he didn't have a gun. That's lie number 1. So that leads me to believe that the police are not lying about the rest of the story. John Lewis, this is all a get out the vote effort, and we'll explain that in a second. John Lewis, Democratic congressperson from Georgia, he says black people have to get out and vote because of situations like this.
African Americans and all Americans must get out and vote like we never voted before. I spent all day yesterday in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, speaking to religious leaders, to ministers, rabbis, and I tell you, the people listen. They're going to turn out. They're going to vote. It's not Hillary Clinton race to win alone. We all of us must be involved in winning this election.
Okay, and then this is what it's all about. This is all just a giant get out the vote effort. There are riots, there are shootings, and then they say, oh, well, this just shows America's a white racist country. Black people, get out there and vote. And they've got all of their ridiculous racial arsonists like Al Sharpton out there making this case. Al Sharpton, of course, needs to be part of any racial story, because what you really need when you're trying to calm racial tensions is a guy who helped instigate race riots in Crown Heights in 1991 and helped instigate the burning down of a store owned by Jews, Freddie's Fashion Mart in New York in the mid-'90s. That's what you need. You need somebody like Al Sharpton, who trotted out the Duke lacrosse hoax. But Al Sharpton says the thing here is that black officers, even, he's trying to deal with the fact that a black officer is the one who did the shooting. He says black officers feel comfortable shooting black people. That's racism too, because if a black officer puts on the blue, they basically turn into a white person.
Is it that they want accountability of all law enforcement? Because a policeman in Charlotte is black. This is not even race here. So I think the one thing you're seeing is that the protests that are going on around the country, many of which we've been involved in the National Action Network, is not an anti-white or an anti-police, it's anti-accountability.
It's not anti-white, it's not anti-police, except for the fact that people are running around screaming about white people, attacking white people in their cars, dragging them down in parking lots. And the brother of the guy who was shot is going around saying white people are all devils. So sure, it's not racist. And then you have, people like Whoopi Goldberg, and this is where the cultural part of this comes into play. Whoopi Goldberg, she says that anybody who says that white lives matter is just ignorant. And I don't know what Whoopi did to her hair here. I don't know if she got in a fight with a Black & Decker or what. I mean, she looks like something terrible happened. But in any case, here's Whoopi Goldberg.
When the Black Lives Matter thing goes out there, and then what the people say white lives matter, that shows an insensitivity to the to the African American community.
To me, wait, no. Here's what it shows to me: a slight bit of ignorance, because it's not about We know white lives matter. We know it. We've seen it. We see, you know, white suspects doing all kinds of stuff with guns and and we don't see them get shot instantaneously. But we do see, we have seen a guy in an open carry state saying to the police officer, I have one. Yeah. And he gets shot anyway.
That's right.
So there is a disconnect for us. We know white lives matter. We know this.
And
We've
of course,
always
this is a lie.
known
This
it.
is a lie. It's a lie. Cops shoot white people in the same circumstances as black people more often than they shoot black people. And when she gives that example, I assume that she's talking about the Philando Castile case up in Minnesota, when she says, somebody says to the officer, I have a gun. There's no evidence that that happened. Okay, the officer disputes that account. Remember, that tape only started after the guy was shot. So we don't have the full information there. She's just taking for granted what the girlfriend said. Okay, that may be right, it may be wrong, but that's all that she's saying there. But again, all this just generates a narrative that is not true, that black people are being victimized by the police on a routine basis, and that's not true statistically speaking, but it does serve the Democratic agenda. And in just a minute, I'm going to explain to you what that Democratic agenda is. First, we have to say hello to another new advertiser, DSTLD. DSTLD.com/Ben is the place you need to go. If you want jeans that are really affordable and nice, DSTLD.com/Ben is the place to do it. You can actually get jeans that would cost you hundreds of bucks, starting at $65. I have a couple of pairs of their jeans. Again, a lot of our advertisers are so wonderful that I actually go out and end up spending my own money on their product. This is one of them. They gave me a free pair of jeans, and then I went out and I actually bought a couple more pairs of jeans. My wife is buying jeans from them. It's DSTLD.com. It's pronounced distilled, but it's DSTLD.com/Ben. And the fit is terrific. I mean, you go on there and they you just put in your measurements, and then they get you the jeans that you need. And again, the price is really terrific. And if you go to that site, DSTLD.com/Ben, you get $10 off your first pair. One of the reasons they're able to do it a lot cheaper is, number one, they don't have the brand markup, and number two, they also conserve material in a different way than a lot of jean manufacturers. It's DSTLD.com/Ben for $10 off right now. So your first pair of jeans is $55 as opposed to $65. Again, DSTLD.com/Ben. Make sure you use the /Ben so that you can ensure that you are able to to keep our show going, because then they know that we sent you. Before we break here, I want to make one more quick point, and that is Instapundit, who's Glenn Reynolds, a professor at University of Tennessee Law School. He was briefly suspended this morning from Twitter, and he was suspended from Twitter this morning after he tweeted that people should run them over. And when he meant run them over, they're a group of quote-unquote protesters, they're actually rioters, who are on the freeways, and they were confronting cars and running at them. And he was saying, don't stop your car, keep going. He was suspended for that. Instapundit was suspended for that. The video that he's linking to there, you can see it in the tweet. The video that he's linking to there looks like this. This is what the video is. You can see this large group of people rushing the car, and then the car takes off. So the idea here, presumably, I'm getting the Hillary Clinton frog in my throat here. Apparently, the idea here is that the driver's just supposed to sit there and wait for the protesters to crack his windshield and drag him out of the car. He tweeted, run them over, meaning keep going. and Twitter suspended him. Remember, Twitter is biased. Twitter is biased. Facebook is biased. I love both these sites. They're biased. Okay, Twitter suspends Glenn Reynolds for saying run them over. DeRay McKesson, who is one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, this extremist radical movement that lies to people and incentivizes people to commit violence against the police, the guy who spoke at Yale and lectured at Yale and wrote an essay and recommended an essay called In Defense of Looting, that guy does seminars with the head of Twitter, the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. He's never been suspended. He's been upheld by Jack Dorsey as an example of social activism. Twitter now has this logo, right? If you type in Black Lives Matter with the hashtag, they give you a bunch of fists upraised like this, right? That's perfectly fine. So Black Lives Matter can say whatever crazy, insane, anti-civilization things they want to say about violence. Nothing. Glenn Reynolds says, if somebody approaches your car, keep going, run them down. And he's suspended from Twitter, and he's suspended from Twitter because that's the way this goes. Okay, if you want to watch the rest of the show right now live, go to dailywire.com, and today's the day to do it. Today's the day to subscribe because we have the mailbag coming up. And if you're one of the Daily Wire members, then you get to be part of that mailbag, which is pretty awesome. You get to be part of our Mailbag Plus. On a normal day, we can't do it today because I'm on the road. On a normal Thursday, we actually do a live back and forth in the middle of the show. You can send me questions in the middle of the show, and I will respond to those questions, which is pretty cool for you because let's face it, I mean, when are you ever going to get a chance to talk to somebody like me? Come on. Unless you remember, $8 a month, dailywire.com is the place to be right now. If you do it and you get an annual subscription, then you get a copy of Andrew Klavan's new book, The Great Good Thing, which, as I've talked about, is a really interesting, really well-written book with a lot of interesting ideas in it. It's about his conversion experience, really from secularism to Christianity. He talks about secular Jew to Christianity, but he grew up in a very secular Jewish household that really had no relation to Judaism, was kind of anti-Judaism. In any case, you can get all that, plus my novel's coming out. You'll get a copy of that at dailywire.com right now. You go and sign up for the annual subscription, which is pretty cool. So dailywire.com, $8 a month. Skip on the cheeseburger. Go get the subscription now and help us out. So dailywire.com for the most prominent and the most listened to daily podcast, daily conservative podcast in America, The Ben Shapiro Show. Okay, so we can